6 degrees of separation.
6 degrees of separation is the theory that everyone and everything is 6 or fewer steps away, by way of introduction, from any other person in the world, so that a chain of a friend statements can be made to connect any two people in a maximum of 6 steps. It was originally set out by Frigyes Karinthy and popularized by a play written by John Guare.
Early conceptions. Shrinking world.
Theories on optimal design of cities, city traffic flows, neighborhoods and demographics were in vogue after World War I. These conjectures were expanded in 1929 by Hungarian author Frigyes Karinthy, who published a volume of short stories titled Everything is Different. One of these pieces was titled Chains, or Chain Links. The story investigated in abstract, conceptual, and fictional terms many of the problems that would captivate future generations of mathematicians, sociologists, and physicists within the field of network theory. Due to technological advances in communications and travel, friendship networks could grow larger and span greater distances. In particular, Karinthy believed that the modern world was shrinking due to this ever-increasing connectedness of human beings. He posited that despite great physical distances between the globe's individuals, the growing density of human networks made the actual social distance far smaller. As a result of this hypothesis, Karinthy's characters believed that any two individuals could be connected through at most 5 acquaintances. In his story, the characters create a game out of this notion. He writes, "This idea both directly and indirectly influenced a great deal of early thought on social networks. Karinthy has been regarded as the originator of the notion of 6 degrees of separation. A related theory deals with the quality of connections, rather than their existence. The theory of 3 degrees of influence was created by Nicholas A. Christakis and James H. Fowler."
Small world.
Michael Gurevich conducted seminal work in his empirical study of the structure of social networks in his 1961 Massachusetts Institute of Technology Ph.D. dissertation under Ithiel de Solar Pool. Mathematician Manfred Kochen, an Austrian who had been involved in urban design, extrapolated these empirical results in a mathematical manuscript, Contacts and Influences, concluding that in a US-sized population without social structure, it is practically certain that any two individuals can contact one another by means of at most 2 intermediaries. In a structured population it is less likely but still seems probable. And perhaps for the whole world's population, probably only one more bridging individual should be needed. They subsequently constructed Monte Carlo simulations based on Gurevich's data, which recognized that both weak and strong acquaintance links are needed to model social structure. The simulations, carried out on the relatively limited computers of 1973, were nonetheless able to predict that a more realistic 3 degrees of separation existed across the U.S. population, foreshadowing the findings of American psychologist Stanley Milgram. Milgram continued Gurevich's experiments in acquaintanceship networks at Harvard University in Cambridge. U.S. Kochen and de Solar Pool's manuscript, Contacts and Influences, was conceived while both were working at the University of Paris in the early 1950s, during a time when Milgram visited and collaborated in their research. Their unpublished manuscripts circulated among academics for over 20 years before publication in 1978. It formally articulated the mechanics of social networks, and explored the mathematical consequences of these, including the degree of connectedness. The manuscript left many significant questions about networks unresolved, and one of these was the number of degrees of separation in actual social networks. Milgram took up the challenge on his return from Paris, leading to the experiments reported in the Small World Problem in popular science journal Psychology Today, with a more rigorous version of the paper appearing in Sociometry 2 years later. The Psychology Today article generated enormous publicity for the experiments, which are well known today, long after much of the formative work has been forgotten. Milgram's article made famous his 1967 set of experiments to investigate de Solar Pool and Kochen's small world problem. Mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot, born in Warsaw, growing up in Poland then France, was aware of the statist rules of thumb, and was also a colleague of de Solarpool, Cochin and Milgram at the University of Paris during the early 1950s. Cochin brought Mandelbrot to work at the Institute for Advanced Study and later IBM in the U.S. This circle of researchers was fascinated by the interconnectedness and social capital of human networks. Milgram's study results showed that people in the United States seemed to be connected by approximately 3 friendship links, on average, without speculating on global linkages. He never actually used the term 6 degrees of separation. Since the Psychology Today article gave the experiments wide publicity, Milgram, Cochin, and Karinthy all had been incorrectly attributed as the origin of the notion of 6 degrees. The most likely popularizer of the term 6 degrees of separation would be John Guare, who attributed the value 6 to Marconi.
Continued research, Small World Project.
In 2003, Columbia University conducted an analogous experiment on social connectedness amongst Internet email users. Their effort was named the Columbia Small World Project, and included 24,163 email chains, aimed at 18 targets from 13 different countries around the world. Almost 100,000 people registered, but only 384, 3% reached the final target. Amongst the successful chains, while shorter lengths were more common, some only reached their target after 7, 8, 9 or 10 steps. Dodds al. noted that participants, all of whom volunteers, was strongly biased towards existing models of Internet users and that connectedness based on professional ties was much stronger than those within families or friendships. The authors cite lack of interest as the predominating factor in the high attrition rate, a finding consistent with earlier studies.
Research.
Several studies, such as Milgram's Small World experiment, have been conducted to empirically measure this connectedness. The phrase 6 degrees of separation is often used as a synonym for the idea of the small world phenomenon. However, detractors argue that Milgram's experiment did not demonstrate such a link, and the 6 degrees claim has been decried as an academic urban myth. Also, the existence of isolated groups of humans, for example the Caribou and other native Brazilian populations, would tend to invalidate the strictest interpretation of the hypothesis.
Computer networks.
In 2001, Duncan Watts, a professor at Columbia University, attempted to recreate Milgram's experiment on the Internet, using an email message as the package that needed to be delivered, with 48,000 senders and 19 targets, in 157 countries. Watts found that the average, though not maximum, number of intermediaries was around 6. A 2007 study by Juri Leskovec and Eric Horvitz examined a data set of instant messages composed of 30 billion conversations among 240 million people. They found the average path length among Microsoft Messenger users to be 6. It has been suggested by some commentators that interlocking networks of computer-mediated lateral communication could diffuse single messages to all interested users worldwide as per the 6 degrees of separation principle via information routing groups, which are networks specifically designed to exploit this principle and lateral diffusion.
Find Satoshi.
The UK-based game company Mind Candy is currently testing the theory by distributing a picture of a Japanese man named Satoshi. The puzzle was originally a part of Mind Candy's Perplexity, but it has since grown into its own project.
An optimal algorithm to calculate degrees of separation in social networks.
Baksh and al. have addressed the search problem of identifying the degree of separation between two users in social networks such as Twitter. They have introduced new search techniques to provide optimal or near-optimal solutions. The experiments are performed using Twitter, and they show an improvement of several orders of magnitude over greedy approaches. Their optimal algorithm finds an average degree of separation of 3.43 between two random Twitter users, requiring an average of only 67 requests for information over the Internet to Twitter. A near-optimal solution of length 3.88 can be found by making an average of 13.3 requests.
Popularization.
No longer limited strictly to academic or philosophical thinking, the notion of 6 degrees recently has become influential throughout popular culture. Further advances in communication technology, and particularly the Internet, have drawn great attention to social networks and human interconnectedness. As a result, many popular media sources have addressed the term. The following provide a brief outline of the ways such ideas have shaped popular culture.
John Guare's 6 Degrees of Separation.
American playwright John Guare wrote a play in 1990 and later released a film in 1993 that popularized it. It is Guare's most widely known work. The play ruminates upon the idea that any two individuals are connected by at most 5 others. As one of the characters states, Guare, in interviews, attributed his awareness of the 6 degrees to Marconi. Although this idea had been circulating in various forms for decades, it is Guare's piece that is most responsible for popularizing the phrase 6 degrees of separation. Following Guare's lead, many future television and film sources would later incorporate the notion into their stories. J.J. Abrams, the executive producer of television series 6 Degrees and Lost, played the role of Doug in the film adaptation of this play. Many of the play's themes are apparent in his television shows, see below.
Kevin Bacon Game.
The game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon was invented as a play on the concept. The goal is to link any actor to Kevin Bacon through no more than 6 connections, where 2 actors are connected if they have appeared in a movie or commercial together. It was created by 3 students at Albright College in Pennsylvania, who came up with the concept while watching Footloose. On September 13, 2012, Google made it possible to search for any given actor's Bacon number through their search engine. Upon the arrival of the 4G mobile network in the United Kingdom, Kevin Bacon appears in several commercials for the EE network in which he links himself to several well-known celebrities and TV shows in the UK.
6 Degrees on the Internet. sixdegrees.org.
On January 18, 2007, Kevin Bacon launched sixdegrees.org, a website that builds on the popularity of the small world phenomenon to create a charitable social network and inspire giving to charities online. Bacon started the network with celebrities who are highlighting their favorite charities, including Kira Sedgwick, Natural Resources Defense Council, Nicole Kidman, UNIFEM, Ashley Judd, Youth AIDS, Bradley Whitford and Jane Catchmark, Clothes Off Our Back, Dana Delaney, Scleroderma Research Foundation, Robert Duvall, Promuja, Rosie O'Donnell, Rosie's for All Kids Foundation, and Jessica Simpson, Operation Smile, and he encouraged everyone to be celebrities for their own causes by joining the 6 Degrees movement. Sixdegrees.org is about using the idea that we are all connected to accomplish something good, said Bacon. It is my hope that 6 Degrees will soon be something more than a game or a gimmick. It will also be a force for good, by bringing a social conscience to social networking. The game, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, made the rounds of college campuses over the past decade and lived on to be a shorthand term for the small world phenomenon. Bacon created sixdegrees.org in partnership with the non-profit Network for Good, AOL, and Entertainment Weekly. Through sixdegrees.org, which builds on Network for Good's giving system for donating to more than 1 million charities online and AOL's AIM Pages social networking service, people can learn about and support the charities of celebrities or fundraise for their own favorite causes with their own friends and families. Bacon will match the charitable dollars raised by the top 6 non-celebrity fundraisers with grants of up to $10,000 each.
Facebook.
A Facebook platform application named 6 Degrees was developed by Carl Bunyan, which calculates the degrees of separation between different people. It had over 5.8 million users, as seen from the group's page. The average separation for all users of the application is 5.73 degrees, whereas the maximum degree of separation is 12. The application has a Search for Connections window to input any name of a Facebook user, to which it then showed the chain of connections. In June 2009, Bunyan shut down the application, presumably due to issues with Facebook's caching policy. Specifically, the policy prohibited the storing of friend lists for more than 24 hours, which would have made the application inaccurate. A new version of the application became available at 6 degrees after Carl Bunyan gave permission to a group of developers led by Todd Chaffee to redevelop the application based on Facebook's revised policy on caching data. The initial version of the application was built at a Facebook developers garage London Hopcarthon with Mark Zuckerberg in attendance. Yahoo! Research Small World Experiment has been conducting an experiment and everyone with a Facebook account can take part in it. According to the research page, this research has the potential of resolving the still unresolved theory of 6 degrees of separation. Facebook's data team released 2 papers in November 2011 which document that amongst all Facebook users at the time of research, 721 million users with 69 billion friendship links, there is an average distance of 4.74. Probabilistic algorithms were applied on statistical metadata to verify the accuracy of the measurements. It was also found that 99.91% of Facebook users were interconnected, forming a large connected component.
LinkedIn.
The LinkedIn professional networking site operates on the concept of how many steps you are away from a person you wish to communicate with. The site encourages you to pass messages to people in your network via the people in your first-degree connections list, who in turn pass it to their first-degree connections.
Sixdegrees.com.
6degrees.com was an early social networking website that existed from 1997 to 2001. It allowed users to list friends, family members and acquaintances, send messages and post bulletin board items to people in their first, second, and third degrees, and see their connection to any other user on the site. At its height, it had approximately 1 million users.
Twitter.
Users on Twitter can follow other users creating a network. According to a study of 5.2 billion such relationships by social media monitoring firm Sysmos, the average distance on Twitter is 4.67. On average, about 50% of people on Twitter are only 4 steps away from each other, while nearly everyone is 5 steps or less away. In another work, researchers have shown that the average distance of 1,500 random users in Twitter is 3.435. They calculated the distance between each pair of users using all the active users in Twitter.
Mathematics.
Mathematicians use an analogous notion of collaboration distance. 2 persons are linked if they are co-authors of an article. The collaboration distance with mathematician Paul Erdos is called the Erdos number. Erdos-Bacon numbers and Erdos-Bacon-Sabbath, EBS, numbers are further extensions of the same thinking. Watts and Strigors showed that the average path length between 2 nodes in a random network is equal to lnn/lnk, where n equals total nodes and k equals acquaintances per node. Thus if n equals 300 million, 90% of the US population, and k equals 30, then degrees of separation equals 19.5/3.4 equals 5.7, and if n equals 6 billion, 90% of the world population, and k equals 30, then degrees of separation equals 22.5/3.4 equals 6.6. Assume 10% of population is too young to participate.
Psychology.
A 2007 article published in the Industrial Organizational Psychologist, by Jesse S. Michel from Michigan State University, applied Stanley Milgram's small world phenomenon, that is, small world problem, to the field of IO psychology through co-author publication linkages. Following 6 criteria, Scott Hiaus, Bowling Green State University professor and fellow of the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology, was chosen as the target. Co-author publication linkages were determined for 1. Top authors within the I/O community, 2. Quasi-random faculty members of highly productive I/O programs in North America, and 3. Publication trends of the target. results suggest that the small world phenomenon is alive and well, with mean linkages of 3.00 to top authors, mean linkages of 2.50 to quasi-random faculty members, and a relatively broad and non-repetitive set of co-author linkages for the target. The author then provided a series of implications and suggestions for future research.
In popular culture,
6 Degrees of Separation is a 1993 film drama featuring Will Smith, Donald Sutherland and Stockard Channing. 6 Degrees is a 2006 television series on ABC in the U.S. The show details the experiences of 6 New Yorkers who go about their lives without realizing they are affecting each other, and gradually meet one another. The television program Lost also explores the idea of 6 degrees of separation, as almost all the characters have randomly met each other before the crash or someone the other characters know. Lonely Planet 6 Degrees is a TV travel show that uses the 6 degrees of separation concept. The hosts, Asher Gill and Toby Ames, explore various cities through its people, by following certain personalities of the city around and being introduced by them to other personalities. The Oscar-winning film, Babel, is based on the concept of 6 degrees of separation. The lives of all of the characters were intimately intertwined, although they did not know each other and lived thousands of miles from each other. 6 Degrees of Martina McBride was a television pilot where 6 aspiring country singers from America's smallest towns try to connect themselves to Martina McBride in under 6 points of human connection. Those that make it from nowhere to Nashville to New York, get a shot at a studio session with Martina McBride and a record deal with Sony BMG. The Oosthuizen production Man Bijt Hond, broadcast on Flemish TV, features a weekly section Dossier Costers, in which a worldwide event from the past week is linked to Gustav Costers, an ordinary Flemish citizen, in 6 steps. One of the achievements in the video game Brutal Legend is called 6 Degrees of Schaefer, after the concept and Tim Schaefer, who was presumably in the handful of players to have the achievement as of the game's release. A player can only obtain this achievement by playing online with someone who already has it, further paralleling it to the concept. Connected, The Power of 6 Degrees is a 2008 television episode on the Science Channel in the US and abroad. The No Doubt song Full Circle has a central theme dealing with 6 degrees of separation. 6 Degrees of Separation is an episode of the reimagined Battlestar Galactica series. 6 Degrees of Separation is the title of the second track on the Script's third album, Number 3. 6 Degrees is the title of the sixth track on Scouting for Girls' album, The Light Between Us. The Israeli TV program Cultural Attaché, presented by Dov Ulfan, is based on the concept of 6 degrees of separation. The first guest is asked to name a cultural figure with which he has an unexpected connection, and this person is interviewed and gives yet another name as connection, till the sixth person on the show, who is then asked about a possible connection to the first guest. Such connection is found in about 50% of the interviews. 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence is the title of the Dream Theater album.